Hey, friends, welcome back to yet another exciting episode of Friends of the Squared Circle. We have our friend Matt McCarthy joining us today. We are so excited he is here with us and did not catfish us. I know we talked off camera about that little spoof. I had to throw that in there. Matt, how you doing today?
Good. Well, hello there. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you. I mean, don't take this wrong, but you are my big fish that I caught, and I am super excited. I know you do stand up. You're an actor as well as you are a TikTok superstar. I love your content with the VHS. It's probably one of my favorite channels out there. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. I show the wife all the time, Randy, take a shot. And we always watch like those old commercials and stuff, and it just brings back nostalgia. So thank you for that. So.
Hell yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's one of those unique, things that I've never thought about buying. I love VHS. I have all the old Disneys, but what you do is pretty sweet. So people, will get the links for you in the comment sections and stuff, so you can follow Matt there as well. Let's just jump into your wrestling fandom. How'd you get introduced to wrestling?
It's like my earliest memory. Being I have two. One is very uh you know murky, just very early memory. And it was when my brother and I still shared a room. My brother's about 9 years older than me.
Okay.
And I must have it was either a nap or there's no way it was like first thing in the morning, but I remember waking up. It must have been a nap, and I remember waking up in a there's no way it was a crib. It must have been I remember there being a railing, so it must have just been like, like a bed, like a transition type bed. Um, and I remember waking up and it was Saturday and we had a TV in our bedroom with like a ColecoVision plugged into it. And I remember it being the open of the I think it was even before the Hulk Hogan like instrumental of Thriller Championship Wrestling. It was the Bob Backlund opening
Okay.
set to I think the Dixie Dregs did that theme song. And I remember my brother being like, "Matt, look, it's wrestling." And then after that, my earliest memory is
Oop, little freeze up there. It should come back here in a second, folks.
did I freeze?
Alrighty. Gotta love our internet connection in the world today. Oh, you're back. There we go. Got cut off there a little bit.
Oh no. What was the last thing you heard?
Bob Backlund, and then your brother telling you to watch wrestling there. So
Yeah. Okay. And then the other memory was I don't know if we were watching Tuesday Night Titans or if somebody had rented the best of WWF volume 1. But I remember the segment with Hulk Hogan training Mean Gene Okerlund because they were having a tag match together against Mr. Fuji and George Steele.
oh, okay.
And it's funny, I was actually just in Minneapolis this past weekend, but I didn't have enough time to try to retrace those steps.
Oh, nice, nice.
But it's still one of my absolute favorite all-time segments. And then when I worked there at WWE, I tried to recreate it, and there was a night when we did like a retro SmackDown, and Sheamus tagged with Mean Gene Okerlund, or as close to a tag match as we were going to get with Gene at his age. But yeah, that's and fan ever since. I mean, maybe a brief dip in, high school,
Mm-hmm.
and then right back into it in the late 90s.
Very nice. Was there any superstars or managers or on TV personalities that really stuck out to you at that time for your favorites?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Hulk Hogan,
Okay.
who's, I find wildly entertaining for all the wrong reasons now. Um, Jimmy Snuka,
Okay.
who probably killed his girlfriend. We don't know. Probably,
Yeah, I wasn't gonna go there, but that's fine.
allegedly, probably, whatever adjective we need to use so
Hmm.
that we're off the hook.
Yeah.
And then Roddy Piper,
Oh, that's a classic. Yep, Rowdy. I
who
love
I
Rowdy.
despised but also loved when I was a
Mhm.
kid, and there was always that strange, like, I hate him, but I love him,
Mhm.
and then actually got to meet him. I met Snuka once too, actually,
Oh,
strangely enough,
nice.
and he was not wearing shoes. It was crazy, and this was like 2012.
You think after all
Uh,
those years you've been able to buy some, you know? So
not wearing shoes. I was like, wow, this guy's for real.
mhm.
Um, met Piper a couple of times, and he was a sweetheart. Absolute
Definitely. Yep.
sweetheart. Yeah, and then those are my early favorites, and was like, oh, these are the guys.
Yeah, I got the chance to meet Piper a couple years before he passed,
Mm.
and I got his autograph and his biography. That's one thing I collect, his biographies. Um, and just so nice. And I was so excited to meet him, and then my buddy, who's a lot leaner, a lot bigger, comes up. He's like, "Oh, we could have been tag team partners back in the day." I'm like, "Thanks, Bob. You just totally crushed my whole experience with Rowdy Piper." And every time we would go to a show, Bob would bring a prop. Like for Mick Foley, he brought the Barbie wrapped in the barbed wire, or he bought the big 2x4 covered in nails for Abyss. And every time we'd go somewhere, we'd have to get cleared for security. They would try to rope Bob into being a wrestler. He tried, but then he just kind of stopped because family stuff got in the way. But yeah, Bob always one ups me at wrestling shows. So
God damn it, Bob.
yeah, Bob. So with those characters, did you go to any live events when you were a kid? Were you able to meet them as kids and then tell them as you got older that you met them when you're little or anything like that?
No, I mean,
Okay.
the first live wrestling show I went to, I can actually tell you the exact date because I am that. I don't know, what word do I want?
That good, that great.
I'm that great.
There we
I'm
go.
that great. No, I'm that curious about my. I don't know. I was like, there was one day I woke up and I was like, I need to know. So I have it saved in a doc. Here we go. First wrestling show I ever went to, Providence, Rhode Island, the Providence Civic Center, June 13th, 1987. Oh
Okay.
wow, I'm coming up on the anniversary actually. Um, this is how long ago this was. I saw St. Jones
Okay.
beat the Red Demon. I wonder who the Red Demon is.
Right. I haven't heard that one
Um,
before.
let's see. The Islanders over Paul Roma and Jim Powers. Ken Patera over Hercules. Rick Martel and Tom Zank over Don Morocco and Bob Orton Jr.
Oh, yep.
After the match, Morocco and Orton began fighting with each other. Brutus Beefcake and the Rougeaus. This match I remember specifically versus Greg Valentine, Dino Bravo, and Luscious Johnny V in an elimination match. So this would have been after Beefcake and Valentine had broken up.
Okay.
This also, I remember not knowing who most of the wrestlers, feeling like I didn't know who most of the wrestlers were up to this point. But Brutus Beefcake, that name always stuck with me, and I was like, I know who Beefcake is. I feel like I must have known Valentine. I remember the image of Luscious Johnny V really stuck with me
Gotcha.
because of just like I remember not quite knowing who he was, but thinking this guy looks like pro wrestling to me. And they
Mhm.
did the spot in it where Luscious Johnny V. For those of you who are younger, if you just don't know, it like he was the manager. He was, a retired wrestler who is now in the match. And they did the spot. You don't see it too much anymore, where Johnny's on his back and both of his legs are on either side of the ring post, and
Okay.
then Brutus Beefcake is on the floor and he's got him by his ankles, and then he like looks to the crowd like, should I do it? And I remember him looking in our direction, and I was like, this is crazy. and then he pulls his ankles, crotching him on the post, and I
Mhm.
was like, that is bonkers that just happened.
Right.
Um, Iron Mike Sharp over Outback Jack. This is how long ago this show was. Iron Mike Sharp was on the show and won. And then the main event was Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff against the Junkyard Dog. And I remember, and I knew who both those guys were. And I
Mhm.
remember watching them come down the aisle and just being like, oh, this is crazy. This is crazy that they're really here. So that was the very first show I ever went to. But no, I never met a wrestler until I worked at WWE.
Okay. We'll touch on that a little bit too. I know one of the first ones I went to, I met Baron von Raschke, and he put me in the claw
Oh,
thing.
that's
Kind of
amazing.
freaked me out as a kid. I was lucky enough to bump into him at a local show in Minneapolis, where I got to open the door for him and tell him the story, and he just kind of laughed. So it was kind of nice to, meet him like 20 some years later and tell him how he
Mm.
scared the crap out of me. Was there anybody that influenced you? I know, like I said, you did stand up comedy and stuff. Was there any superstars that kind of influenced you in your acting or your stand up in that regard as to what you do now?
I think only maybe Mick Foley, but only in so much of because like his story was so, he was the first wrestler that I was aware of that because like when I got back into wrestling in um spring of 98, it was like I was aware of people wearing Austin 316 shirts,
Hmm.
and I knew that it was wrestling, and I was very curious about Stone Cold Steve Austin. But the thing that put me over the edge was seeing a wrestling magazine with my friend, and Mankind was in it, but he didn't have his mask on, and
Oh, okay.
I was like, "What?" My buddy's like, "Oh, that's Mankind," and I was like, "What are you talking about? That's Cactus Jack. What is that's weird." I was like, "What the?" And I was like, "I have to find out what is Mankind
Hmm.
like." And then when I started watching again that summer, I was just drawn in. But then so much of Foley's story was very just matter of fact. Like, he was a fan, like, did wrestling in the yard, was
Hmm.
like a real person.
Jumping off
Um,
roofs onto mattresses. Yep.
yeah, and was a real person who was just a fan who became a wrestler and overcame so much adversity and the odds and stuff. And there was just at least that aspect of his story, I was like, because I never went up on stage and was trying to emulate any wrestler. I wasn't trying
Okay.
to be Steve Austin or Roddy Piper or Cactus Jack for that matter. But there was just the aspect of, oh, if he can do this, and I don't think I had this literal thought in my head, but it was
Hmm.
very much the feeling of if he can do this, I can do this. If that there is a, you know, just go and figure out how to do it. Because when I started doing stand up, like at the time, one of my best friends was in med school and my brother was in law school. And I remember thinking, like, well, I don't have a school I can go to. I don't have a curriculum or a,
Hmm.
you know, reading list or something. People say go to open mics. So I'm like, I guess I just go to open mics. And then it was just, they're going to school to learn a trade and I'm going to school to learn this trade. And that was the
Hmm.
way I looked at it.
That's pretty cool. I mean, and the credit Mick Foley too. I think he might have been like one of the first, when he was wearing the sweats and the flannel that made him kind of look like a, in a sense, a modern day Dusty Rhodes, being the guy that didn't really look like your typical Triple H or, your Razors and Nash. He was just, out there killing it in sweats and a flannel. And I think it's just so funny that you hear all these stories about how so cheap he was. And it's just like,
Yeah.
Triple H talking about how he would just like throw his, well, not really gear, but like his laundry in a, garbage bag and haul town to town, or he'd get the popcorn from the venue and that would be his road snack, and dry off in the clothes that he just wrestled in and then travel town to town, So Mankind was one of my first ones that I gravitated more that dark character. But always been a fan of Foley. I got a few of his biographies back there again, talking about those. I've had the pleasure of meeting him. Super nice guy. My buddy Joe kind of got a bad experience with him because he wasn't supposed to be signing for everybody that day, and everybody was coming through. So, but yeah, super cool guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think because like with Dusty, like Dusty felt like a star.
hmm
Foley always felt like one of us. Like somehow he had snuck in, you know?
Yeah, that commissioner stuff he did for a while there too was pretty funny. I do like his stories. He does like the stand up, or well, it's more storytelling, with comedy and stuff. He just puts a nice little twist on the stories. It's so great.
Yeah,
So.
you know what's funny is we were just in Vegas for Double or Nothing, and on Saturday night we went to Ryan and Nick Nemeth, like Dolph Ziggler and Hot Young Briley. Or no, what is that the name he uses in AEW? The Hollywood Hunk. What does he call him? Oh, I think he just does Ryan Nemeth, right?
I'm not familiar with the second name there. I haven't watched too much AEW just because I don't have access to it. I'm more of an indie guy. I go to a lot of the indie shows in Minneapolis and down in Chicago and stuff. I'm up in Superior, Wisconsin, so I kind of do like a triangle of where I go. That's about it. So,
they did a comedy show, and Big Bill, who formerly known as Big Cass,
yeah.
he did stand up, and me and Vince, who do the We Watch Wrestling podcast, we were so in love with his set because it wasn't that it was good.
Mm-hmm.
It was that he didn't do wrestling stories. He did 6 minutes and was just like, talking about using the elevator and pressing the button, and then somebody else coming up and pressing the button. And it's like, I feel like I heard that joke when I was a kid, like watching TV, but we were just like, yes, like he's like, no, I'm not going up there and just telling road stories. I'm doing stand up. I'm going to do stand up. And he wrote jokes, and it was like, you are awesome. It made us because so many, like RVD does, like, like he'll do like roasts and like make fun of the actual comedians. And it's like,
oh, nice,
dude, but it's like, you're not, you write a joke then, but anyway.
Yeah, that's what I think I like about the biographies. That's like the one books that I get into. Like I have other sports stars too, but wrestling is more my new front passion, and well, not new, I guess, but yeah, it's just cool to kind of hear the behind the scenes things of, like you hear about Chris Jericho getting into it with Goldberg, or you find out that a certain wrestler, I'm just throwing out the random things, but it's kind of like an inside look. And one thing I always go back to is like, it just baffles me how many of my heroes were struggling with, drugs and alcohol. Some of my favorites being, like Dustin Rhodes, when he dealt with his alcohol and pills. It's just like, man, you were on that stuff and you were out there performing night after night. Like, it's just crazy to hear like those stories,
Sure.
It sucks that they struggle with that.
Yeah.
It's good that he's sober and clean. I hate reading about my superstars passing away because of that stuff, as well as athletes and everything else. But, that's what I love about, now with WWE, and their social media, you kind of get that extra, glimpse into their inside personal lives. So it's more that you can discover that they are actually real people. They do the same thing we do every day. They want to be left alone. Give them their space. Don't be one of these airport hounders, with 700 of the boxes to have them sign, because they are people. So,
did you read Regal's book?
I have it. I have not got through that one. I've got like 40 of them back there, and I'm like halfway through all of them. So,
Regal's is great. I mean,
one of my favorites is. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, in terms of like, getting sober. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
I know he had an issue with that too.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is Hornswoggle's book. He runs a promotion over there in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, which I've been to plenty of times, and I always plug it on here because it's given me a new respect for him having to hide under the ring. And when I met him, He talks about playing Tommy ball in there, where they would throw tennis balls at Tommy Dreamer's balls backstage. Like that's one of the stories like I'm talking about. Like you just don't expect that. So I brought him tennis balls as a joke, and then just put the uh, South Park Tommy Dreamer picture on there and put Tommy balls. And he thought that was the funniest thing. Gave me a free photo, autographed my book for free, and he was just laughing the whole time, putting him into his bag. So Hornswoggle's up there in my top, top
Yeah.
coolest wrestlers I've ever met. I've got to meet him a few times. So
Great. Yeah. Yeah. I worked with him. Dylan was great.
yeah, and he's a collector too. That's what I think is pretty cool too. I like when the wrestlers are collecting, because then I don't feel like the biggest nerd in the world. I have a small collection because I don't want to get too out of hand. You can see behind me, I got the local boy Otis. He's from Superior, Wisconsin here. So uh, I actually crashed his mom's birthday party. That's in a previous episode. My buddy Randy likes to give me crap about all the time. So anytime we go
Is
to the
he?
wrestlers,
You ever roll? Does he still live in that town?
he doesn't live here. Man, I sound like a stalker. I'm sure he lives closer to Minneapolis now.
Uh,
He lives kind of down there by Chad Gable. Man, I sound so stalkerish. But
no,
yeah,
I
I'm
was
sure
just
it's easier
wondering
for
if.
him to get on the flights and go in and out of town. And
Sure, sure. No, I
uh,
was just wondering if if he was always like outside, like cooking steaks or something.
he used to come like all the time before he was on TV a lot during the pandemic. So
Yeah.
like we'd see him post up that he's like Quick Trip. That's a local gas station here. He'd be like heading out of town, heading back to Orlando for tapings during the pandemic, and we're like, that's like a block away from my house. So
No, his
yeah.
Instagram, I'm a big fan.
Mhm.
If I was still writing there, I would be pitching hard. Like, we need to be doing vignettes, like of him just cooking meat, just out there, like, and then do a spot where some jerk attacks him or throws him through the grill or
Mhm.
something, or do
Mess
a
up his
match where.
sausages, his
Yeah,
sandwiches.
yeah. Because I mean, like with now I'm like actually working it out in my head. Like
Mhm.
this is exactly what it was like in the writers' room. It's like, because like the Crusher used to come to the ring. Maybe he wouldn't come to the ring, but like he would do promos holding
The
the
keg.
keg of beer,
Mhm.
like have Otis with the
Case of
thing of
sausages.
gasoline,
Oh,
not
that too, the
gasoline, the
propane. Yep,
propane
yep,
tank.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
That'd be that perfect. Like he
Mhm.
comes down with it. Like he's so strong and he loves cooking meat.
Yeah, he knows a lot of people that I know because they've all went to high school with him.
Uh-huh.
I work at a middle school, so like a lot of the teachers know him and they know my fandom and stuff. So it's cool to like hear stories about him growing up, how he was the same, way in high school and stuff. One of the funny stories is when he was, going to state for wrestling, and we were at a SmackDown taping in Duluth, or just a house show, excuse me, not taping. And my buddy's like, "Oh, look, that's so and so." And at the time, I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care. I was in high school wrestling too. Like, people make it to state, And now I've got everything that they release. I've got pretty much every one of his T-shirts. Every time they come out with a new sport, see, it's stalkering, but it's just being informed and being a good fan. I have all the cards that he's released. I try to get each one. So if he does blow up even more, like a Dusty Rhodes, or that I have all this stuff from the beginning, because I've never collected anybody from the beginning, so it's kind of cool. And he's
Mm,
local, so you know.
hell yeah.
So let's touch on that wrestling, work with WWE there quick. How'd you get into that? What were some of the highs and lows? Anything you want to discuss? If you did like a big story, here's your chance to kind of open that door for us, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I mentioned before, stand-up comedian, and so it was, and this is the best advice I always give people is just be honest about what it is you are into and what you enjoy,
Mhm.
because it putting that out there makes first of all, it makes life easier, because especially like I have the experience of growing up being a fan of wrestling at a time when it was like, and there's still a, you know people don't get it, or people like with anything, they'll try to make you feel bad for enjoying the thing that you
Mhm.
love. Um, but I was very much known in my, comedy community as the wrestling fan. And just like with on TikTok, like you mentioned, like I am a huge like physical media
Mhm.
collector, and I'm surrounded by DVDs and videotapes, Um, and I'm known as the guy who collects videos, which is great
Mhm.
because people are like, "Oh, awesome. I have all these videos that I don't want anymore, and I don't wanna throw them away. I'll just
Mhm.
give them to you, and
Yep.
you'll appreciate them." And it was always the same with wrestling stuff. It's like, "Oh, my wife says I gotta get rid of all these wrestling magazines, and I don't wanna throw them away. I'm gonna give them to you." And I was like, "I will take them."
Mhm.
So, that said, mid actually, it was more like 3rd quarter 2011, WWE was reaching out to comedy writers, specifically TV comedy writers. And so, having made it no secret that I'm a wrestling fan, all these TV writers were like, I don't want this gig, but I know the guy who would. So, like,
Mhm.
once after the first person sent me the thing, I must have gotten it like 6 or 7 more times from people like, hey, they're looking for comedy guys. And so I just applied for the job, an interview, met with some woman from HR, Brian Gewirtz, who wound up being my boss. You should get his book actually.
Oh, okay.
Um, and Dave Kapoor, who wrestling fans would know as Ranjan Singh. Um, and had a great interview with them, got offered the job, and was there for 2 different runs. The first run lasted just under a year, and I was living in New York, commuting to Stamford, spent half the time on the home team in Titan Towers, spent the other half on the road at TV and pay-per-views, and
Mhm.
then quit that, moved out to LA, back into comedy, back into, TV writing and acting. And then they reached out in early 2016. My son had just been born, and they were like, "How about you consult, stay in LA, do your comedy thing, and we'll just send you segments and assignments, and you can pitch stuff and just get your stuff in." Um, did that for like 2 more years.
Okay.
And that was a great gig too because I didn't have to go to TV. I didn't have to get yelled at by Vince. And also I was on the West Coast, so like those Vince meetings would run really late, and they knew that I would be up, because they'd be getting out of the meeting at like 3,
Mhm.
and they're like, "Well, it's only midnight in LA, and so we can get McCarthy working on this already." Um, things that I worked on, I mean, when I was in my first run, I mean, I was always the comedy guy, which is a dubious luxury at WWE because Vince McMahon's idea of comedy is somebody getting their foot stuck in a bucket. The hardest I ever saw Vince McMahon laugh was 2 times. One, Triple H turned around to explain something to someone, and as he's turning around, he knocked water all over himself, and Vince just could not contain himself, and like literally sitting there gasping for breath, just going, "He spilled water all over himself." And the other time was Vince farted in the meeting, and like, the writer who's sitting next to him, Vince is like, "What does this say here?" And when the guy leaned in, he's like, "Oh God!" And he's like, and literally the muscle milk fart wafted from the front of the room, and when it finally got to me in the back of the room, I mean, it was like a wave of people just. And Vince was purple faced, laughing so hard. Um, so some of the stuff I wrote would get changed or misinterpreted or
Mhm.
just, flat out not used. But the stuff that did get through, um, because it's also I'm not, I was in a position where the stuff I was going to pitch was going to go through a lot of people before it got to TV, if it got on TV.
Okay.
And then it's still in the hands of, is the wrestler going to, interpret this material? It's part of the it's just part of the job when you're a writer. Like, people are going to interpret the material their own way, which is what's so wonderful about writing your own stuff.
Mhm.
Um anyway, work with Santino a lot, work with Zack Ryder a lot. And it's funny, I see Matt Cardona on Indies or at GCW specifically all the time, and I haven't had a chance to grab him and be like, "Hey, do you remember me? We worked together a lot." Brian Myers remembers me, Kurt Hawkins.
Yep.
Um,
He's a great dude too.
he's great, and we've
Mhm.
chatted a bunch, but it's so funny. They've even been together, and I just haven't had a chance to grab Cardona and be like, "Dude, what you're doing now is awesome." Hornswoggle, R-Truth,
R-Truth. Yeah, I
the
love
funny
R-Truth.
guys,
Yeah.
always with them. And the thing I'm most proud of, or most fondly remembered for, it's kind of the thing that they were like, we need to reach out to McCarthy, get him back. Was I wrote the anger management vignettes with Daniel Bryan
Oh,
and
that's so
Kane.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge Daniel Bryan fan right here.
Oh, Brian's the best. I
Mhm.
mean, you want to talk about legit the nicest guy in professional wrestling, it's him.
Yeah.
Genuine, real, just he was a delight.
Yeah, I think he credits that like part of Run was one of his favorites, so that's even cooler, like
Well, that was
yeah.
the one, because that was around the time we paired him up with AJ, and she and he she was so nervous. And it's funny seeing the change in her going
Mhm.
from, excuse me, I'm so sorry, I just have a quick question, to, yeah, I don't think my character would do that. And he was very much again. He's like, why are we pairing me up with AJ Lee? Like,
Mhm.
what? He's like, we did the thing with me and the Bellas, and that didn't go anywhere. And it's like, well, you did meet your wife and future children, mother of your children, but I understand, maybe
Yeah,
story
no big
wise it
deal.
didn't,
No big deal. Sorry you're happy,
I think it worked out a little bit. And then those two, it was like perfect. They were so perfect for each other in that story, and her character evolving and getting to the place of, the loose cannon. Basically, she became the new
Mhm.
Brian Pillman. Especially in that, and that definitely clicked in my head when it was like, I forget what match it was, and it was like Vince was like, "All right, how are we getting out of this?" Which is funny because I remember I read, Larry Madison's book you would love, Drawing Heat the Hard Way.
Drawing Heat the Hard Way. Okay.
Yeah,
Check it
I
out, yeah.
read that while I was working there, and it was one of those things when I was like after TV, I couldn't wait to get back to my room and keep reading that book, because it was fascinating, and from a fan perspective, it was great to read, but also as someone who is now, I mean, the title is writer, but like I became a wrestling booker, like you're
Mhm.
on the booking committee, the creative. It's so funny when people are like, "Oh, these goddamn writers, they don't know what they're doing," and you get a bunch of them in there. It's like they
Mhm.
just changed the name. It's a booking committee. They
Yep.
changed the name to creative team. You know. Anyway, um, fascinating book. And at one point in the book, he says, "If you're asking yourself, how do we get out of this match? You're killing your territory." And so the amount of times that you know I was in a production meeting and Vince was like, "How do we get out of this?" It's like, wow. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Mhm.
And we did the finish where AJ just starts ringing the bell, which was a finish they did at an In Your House with Brian Pillman. I think a Stone Cold Brett match. But at any rate, The anger management stuff really came off well, and that was one of the few things that stayed exactly the same from the way I wrote it to the way it aired on TV.
Very nice.
Particularly Kane's monologue of like his, history in wrestling, his Kane telling his story. The other thing, this was during my second run, was the Miz and Maurice doing their parody of Total Bellas. So Miz plays
John Cena.
John Cena and Maurice plays both Bella twins. And I don't know if Maurice got enough. I mean, those were popular.
They are.
But
Yep. I remember that WrestleMania vignette. Yeah, those were good.
But like Maurice needs more praise and credit for those. She was so funny in those segments. I loved writing for Miz and Maurice, and especially when they brought Maurice back. And it was one of those things where I was like, this is going to wind up like losing steam, because with Vince, especially when Vince was in charge, and I suppose he still is, let's face it, he would lose interest in things. Like I was Damien Sandow's writer when he first came to TV. Me and Steve Oppenheim. Steve would write the first draft, and I would really edit it down and like get the best stuff out, and like piece it together of like, okay, this is going to work at TV. And those early Damien Sandow vignettes, pre-tapes, whatever you want to call them, were so well received, and Vince loved them. But it was like Vince is going to lose interest because he loses interest in everything. And it was the same with when we brought in Maurice. I was like, if we can do it that her character, she's like a unruly agent or manager. And the one backstage we did that was like just perfect was she's complaining about the water's room temperature, where are the yellow M&Ms, that whole type of thing. And then who else did I mean, a lot of Santino stuff.
Were you part of the Miz and Sandow's when they did the stunt double?
I was already gone by that point.
That was another class. That was one of the ones I thought was pretty great, where he's getting beat up in the ring, and then Sandow's on the apron, just mimicking everything. So
Aaron is one of those guys that whatever they gave him, like on paper, like the stunt double thing, I was like, oh God, this is shit. And he would elevate the material and make it better, and that is not easy to do. And somehow it still wasn't good enough for Vince in that place. I mean, it's just like, talk about like wasting. They're doing it now with it feels like they're doing it now with what's Eli Drake's name? LA Knight.
Oh, LA Knight, yep. Yeah, I see a lot of people are behind him, yep.
Dude, when we were at Mania, it was like everywhere we went, you just heard people going, yeah. And it's just like, they're blowing it. They're blowing it because it's just
something they're not interested in at this moment.
Right. Because it's not their idea. It's like, no, this is what we're doing. It was the same with Cardona. When he got himself over on his own, like the Zack Ryder thing was just a ground roots thing, and the sentiment from the higher ups was, he's getting himself over, but he's doing it the wrong way, or he's not getting himself over the right way, and it's just like, give me a break.
He's one of those first to utilize the YouTube, and I think I read in one of the books, one of the way to keep your face in the spotlight was to do those. Like when they do a documentary, say about Andre, you do those interviews backstage that, you just kind of sit down and tell your story, so they can cut you into the, the documentary or whatever, to kind of keep your face relevancy or whatever. But yeah, that would be a great book if he puts one out. I'd love to read, that whole story, and then to the indies here and stuff, how he's, I know he wants to possibly go back, but I mean, he's killing it right now. Don't lose that momentum just to go back, just to be there, so.
And they wouldn't know what to do with him.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure of course he's got ideas. He's such a smart guy.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was it's
Gotcha.
such a waste.
All righty. Well, we'll try to get you out of here. Is there anything you want to plug? I know you're a busy man. Any of your socials, where can we find you? This will come out kind of towards the end of June. Do you have any stand-up dates? Anything you want to plug? Or if you send me that stuff, I'll make sure to promote you on our Facebook there. Give you shout outs there. I know we're small time, but we're grinding to be big time. So,
Hey man, all time is the right time. Let's see, end of June. So in July, I'll be doing stand up unless things change because I might I'll be opening for Pete Holmes. If Pete Holmes is coming to your town, we were just in the Midwest and most of those shows were sold out. And we thank you. And well, Pete thanks you. You didn't come to see me. Actually, no, that's not true. One friend, I did see one person I knew from that listens to the We Watch Wrestling podcast in the front row at the special taping in Minneapolis. And July will be in New York, Connecticut, New
okay.
Jersey. Go to PeteHolmes.com for details there. If you like listening to me talk about wrestling, I host the We Watch Wrestling podcast. Wednesdays, new issues go up every week. We are doing
Nice.
our 10th anniversary show this August, Saturday, August 12th in Pasadena at the Lucha Republic venue. It's our new home in California of the awesome store owned by Pentagon in Phoenix.
Oh, nice.
And what else? My stand-up comedy is available wherever you listen to digital music. My latest record, Sober Dad, is wherever it is you stream or listen to music, or you can call Sirius XM and request that they play cuts from the record. And TikTok, Instagram, at McCarthy Redhead. Yeah, if you're a collector, you like physical media or movies, or you want recommendations for Blu-rays or 4Ks, or if you just want to see what's on these videotapes that I find all
That's
over
my
the
favorite
country.
part. Yep.
Yeah. McCarthy, excuse me, McCarthy Redhead on TikTok. And yeah, I also talk movies and TV shows with my beautiful and talented wife, Glennis. Watch It with Matt and Glennis. We put those up Fridays, usually every other Friday, every week if we can. But we have a baby. Well, he's 7.5, but still, it's it ain't easy.
I'm 37 and I'm still a baby. So
Hell yeah, dude.
ask my wife, Randy, take a shot. So
And yeah, that's everything. Thanks for having me, man.
Well, hopefully next time you're in Minneapolis, I can get down there. It's only a couple hours for me, and we can meet up. I appreciate you coming on. I can't thank you enough. Like I said, you were my big fish. You didn't catfish us. That's a shout out to that video. I think it's hilarious. But yeah, I can't thank you enough for coming on. It means a lot. We'll definitely have to set up a time when you're free again and show off some of those collectibles. That might have to be like a 2-3 parter. And we just get cut it down and get it out there. So I can't thank you enough. And I know, like I said on the Instagram, we've been talking since like last year, and I finally got you. So I'm glad you took the time out of your day to come on. So
happy to do it. Thanks for having me, man.
all right, we got a little video package. If you got to run, feel free to cut out, and we can just chat later. Again, I just want to say thank you, and till next time.
Yeah, super cool. Thanks again.
All right. Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, friends, thanks for tuning in to yet another exciting episode of Friends of the Squared Circle, where I'm your host, Crander Q, a.k.a. my real name. Now let's jump into those sponsors, shall we? Make sure to check out ChefKeithFoods.com for all of your salsa needs. The best made fresh since 2019. Flavors include Ragin' Reaper, Hoppin' Habanero, Groovy Garden, and more. Check out that website today. Also, check out our friends over at Superior Creations for all of your custom tumbler needs. They are on Facebook.com/Superior Creations MN. Also, Darren Corbin. Give him a like on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. Yes, Darren Corbin is on TikTok. And another great way to support Darren is by checking out patreon.com/Darren Corbin, where tiers start at just $1. Last but not least, make sure you give us a like and follow on all of our social medias as well. We want to thank you for being a friend of the Squared Circle. Tune in for more episodes. Also, if you want to get merch for yourself, you can check out friendsofthesquaredcircle.org for all of those needs. And it's your boy, Crander Q. Crander Q out.